to 411 T Street, unfiltered conversations on mental health and the issues in society that impact us all. This is where we break down the barriers and explore the topics that intersect with the challenges of modern society. I'm Dr. Milan Bray, and each week we'll dive into raw, honest discussions on the systemic issues that affect us all. We'll hear from experts, thought leaders, and everyday people offering real stories and actionable insights to help you achieve an understanding of the issues that matter most. No filters, no sugarcoating, just real talk. Welcome to 411 T Street. We're going to hear from wonderful experts such as Anne Kannengieser. German. I get my pronouncing. Hopefully I got that one right. She is a retired vet and thought leader, works a lot in the space of values and volunteerism, and we welcome you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
You know, there are so many things going on in the world. Yeah, it's crazy. I'm not gonna date myself, the timestamp with what's going on, but there's a lot of things going on in the world. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on within ourselves too, that we have to marry, personal trauma and strife with external trauma and strife, and it gets really overwhelming. And briefly before we jumped into this, we were both talking about how there's a quote. I think it was Mother Teresa who said it. God only gives you only as much as you can handle, but I wish he didn't trust me so much. And I say amen to that. It just feels so weighted and heavy, and it's just really overwhelming. And I know you've been going through a lot personally. I've been going through some things personally. How do we as humans navigate this without stepping off a cliff? I swear, it's so much.
You mentioned it already. It's all about trust.
Yeah, it's trust, but that's not easy.
No, nobody did say it's easy. It's all about trust. And trusting 100% never is easy. And it's questioning, do you really trust the divine 100%? Are you really willing to hand over your life, your destiny, your everything to the divine?
Yeah.
And every day know this is only happening because it's the best for me.
Yeah, that's, in the midst of the tsunami or the tornado or the hurricane, whatever it is, it feels really hard to say, this is good for me. As you're trying to grab on and hold, hunker in. Yeah, it is whittled down to trust for sure. But that's a lot easier said than done. And that we need to take steps to understand, even how to move, take that one baby step forward to even align with trust, because there's a couple of things. One, not everybody believes the same things. And so there are people out there who are agnostic or atheist. There are people who are questioning. I mean, they may be one thing or the other. Maybe they may be Catholic or Christian or Hindu or Buddhist. And when things happen to us, for us, however we want to define it, and it keeps happening, it is only natural for us as humans to go, I don't know if I buy into this, this divine, this God, because why does this keep happening? So how do we maneuver ourselves in a way that we can realign with that?
can always ask yourself, does it help me grow? Does it help me get just a bit out of my comfort zone and restabilize so that I can be the better version of myself?
Yes,
You
but
don't have to be agnostic or an agnostic to ask that question.
true. That's true. But, I think we may agree on this point that there's a lot of sleepy people, and so there's not there's not that introspective question of, does this help me grow? As somebody who's been in the field of psychology, and somebody who has worked as a therapist, oftentimes, and this is one of the reasons that I got, it's just one of the many reasons why I got out of it, but people come to you not to figure out what's wrong with them, but to figure out what's wrong with everybody else. So, growth is not really the first place that people go to when things are happening. It's why me? Um, and not in the sense of why me so I can grow, but why the is this happening to me? There's a lot of energy behind it.
There's a very hard and harsh truth. The sleeping masses can't be helped.
Mm.
The sleeping masses are into their ego. The ego will always blame others. The ego will always play the victim. The ego never will take responsibility because it resists growth in any way possible. It's another word for resistance to life.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to accept, just as Gurdjieff did say, sleeping masses can't be helped. Move on.
Yeah. But we have, and I don't, I know you're from Germany, you currently live in Greece. I don't know how children are in Germany or Greece. I've spent time in your country, in Germany, never been to Greece on the list. Um, but I know in the West and even in the East, I've lived in the East for many, many years, and may even be going back here soon. I'm not 100% sure, but um, you know, when I see the children that are coming up, and I see how they qualify and quantify their lives. One, there seems to be even a larger, is that the right word I'm putting there? A bigger disconnect from any sort of belief structure. That's the first thing. But I also see more narcissistic tendencies in people, which, when we have narcissism in our life, that's ego, right? So what I'm saying is that I'm seeing more people, more of the children coming up, really much more disconnected and more in tune to their ego than to anything else. Um, when I was growing up, and I would, guess when you were growing up as well, a lot of the things that we learned about life and people and negotiation and cooperation and connection and communication happened outside. It happened on the playground. It happened when we were turning the rope. It happened when we were deciding whose turn it was to ride the bike. It was deciding whose house to go to. Um, it was a shared set of values that we learned on the playground in play, which is such a big part of why Finland does so well in their education, because they really encourage that model. But we don't have that anymore, and not just in the US, but throughout the world, it's becoming more and more common. So yes, I understand that the sleeping master, can't be helped, but we're moving in that direction. So how do we come back to that? What can we do to align more people? Because if this is the trajectory, if the trajectory is sleep and self-centeredness and egocentrism and ethnocentrism, how do we mitigate big crisis?
If we don't find a point to turn and to go into another direction, we will face the same cultural disintegration as other people 5,000 years before. We just will crash as a society globally. And one way out is taking care of the children in another way. At the moment, from kindergarten to school to university, we are not enhancing their creativity. We are not teaching them how to play. We are not teaching them authenticity. We are just getting very wild and creative minds into conformity. We make them obey, not think, just learn by heart and be easily replaced by artificial intelligence. And that will happen. So if we want to reinvent ourselves, we need to set the children free. And change the educational system totally.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. That that's a big ask. Because the thing is, and I see this in the United States, we have the Tay Academy, the Tay methodology, and I've never one time come across an educator that said, "Oh, children don't need to learn values." No one's ever said that. Never had that conversation. And very often they've said, yes, we would love to have this kind of program in our school. It'd be amazing. Our kids would do so well. All this positive stuff, right? And then, but, but, and then I get this list. Oh, but the teachers, they wouldn't, they don't like change. They already have so much on their plate, to make them do one more thing. Oh, the budget. Oh, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, you want systemic change. You want children to be better behaved. You want children to be more creative. You want people to be more authentic. You want your job less stressful. You want to have, as an overall, you want the teacher attrition rates to reduce. You want children to be more successful. You want children to be able to go out into the world and be able to be team players and to be the next generation of leaders. You want, and yet you are not willing, and when I say you, as a collective energy, many are not willing to make that and take that first step towards change. In the United States, we have an enormous amount of gun violence, extreme amount of gun violence. And, there's these two sides. It's like, oh, it's because we have guns in our country. And then the other side's like, it's not the guns, it's the person with pulling the trigger. Well, it's both, it takes two to tango, right? It's both. Children now more than ever, not just in the United States, are more stressed, more overloaded, more depressed. There's higher suicide rates. There's higher self-harm rates. They're overwhelmed. Why, as a collective, not just the US or Germany or Korea or whatever. Why, as a collective, do we see these problems and go, well, we know what the answers are, but I mean, is it some sort of corporate conspiracy to keep us all sleepy? Like, what is happening?
There are people who say that that is the case, but I think we already passed the point of no repair. We are past that. So we will not rebuild our society. We cannot repair it. We need to destroy it and make something new. And there's a lot of anxiety in doing that because people know if they are going for that, it will harm them personally.
Mm.
With the money, with all the material things they collected. For real change, it always was destructive.
That's true.
And we are afraid. And it's rare that people see destruction and begin to dance yataki and say, well, it never collapsed that nicely. But we are going for a total collapse. I'm sure. Here in Europe, we are looking with, let's say, attention and a bit of nausea on the elections in your country, because we know if that's going to be a problem, then civil war is near in the US as well as in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Because the rich getting richer, the poor getting more poor. It is devastating in Greece here. People can't earn a living anymore. It's fatal. It's already fatal. If it would be a patient, you would say diagnosis is fatal. Euthanize.
There's a writer, and hopefully I'm remembering him correctly. I think his name was Norman Black. I have to Google it and see if I'm correct. And he wrote a book about the ways he looked throughout history at the biggest societies, the civilizations, and he looked at the markers of what brought them down. The Romans, the Greek, so he looked at all these markers and he came up with 10 markers. And in his research, he found that it only took 3 of those markers to collapse the society. It was things like lawlessness, lack of faith, things that we all know would, destruct a society. And I can't tell you all 10, but they're the basics, anyway, lack of respect for life, things like that. Anyway, so within those 10 markers, he determined that it only took 3 markers for civilization to collapse. Fun fact, the United States is the first civilization in history to reach all 10 markers. There was also an 11th marker, and that 11th marker, and he said, once this happens,
it's done.
It's yeah, flat line. There's a flat line. So the 11th marker, and this happened in this country in 2016 when Trump was elected. The 11th marker was change for the sake of change. And although I understand that politics has its thing, and nobody really likes politicians and all of that kind of stuff, I get that. I 100%. Like, to get a perfect politician would be like asking for, I don't know, I don't even know what that would be like. It's so utopian. I can't even come up with a parallel thought there. Um, but that was often the chant with Donald Trump. He's not a politician. He's different. He's different. He's different. We just want different. But we saw what that did. And but I think there was a bigger issue when we look at people like Donald Trump. When I look at those 10 markers from, again, I think his name was Norman Black. When I look at those 10 markers, Donald Trump was a reflection of those 10 markers. It was the erosion of values. It was the erosion of honesty. It was the erosion of integrity. It was the erosion of love. It was the erosion of connection. It was the erosion of everything. He just simply reflected back to the American population and to the world to some degree where we were headed. And I think there's been this now struggle, not just in the United States, but globally, on how to fix that. Like, oh my God, that's not what we want. Is that what we want? We know what's going to happen if we do this. But yet it comes back, Marianne, to the same thing. Why are we not willing to really authentically change it? When we see leaders throughout the world like Viktor Orban, Kim Jong-un, we see more and more of these ideologies that put us in situations like World War One, World War Two. I mean, have we learned nothing?
There are people, philosophers, that say it needs a major environmental catastrophe which wakes up just enough of the sleeping masses to realize that we have to do something to have a life worth living. And if we can manage that, we have a chance.
Haven't we had enough environmental disasters?
And not the real ones lately. We are speaking of environmental disasters as not a major, but a middle volcano erupting, leading to 1 or 2 years without harvest. Then people will wake up. Then values will change.
But I think even in that, when I think about having those kinds of devastations, I see the rich and the people who have the resources just taking advantage. Like I see what you're saying, but I just see uh this kind of movie playing out where the rich just end up on Mars and the poor people stay, like
They can.
I mean that's an extreme, right? But I just feel like in that space there's going to be so much strife and conflict. It would take years and years and years of everybody, even the rich, losing everything. And in that point, there's nothing really left.
Rich people can't buy health. They
Well,
can't buy happiness.
no, that's
They
true.
can't buy wisdom. They can't buy getting up each morning just being happy for nothing. They can't buy it. They can't buy detachment. They can't buy non-identification. It's impossible.
That's true.
We only can get there by evolving. You can't buy enlightenment. You can buy a spaceship, for sure. Have fun with it. Go for an adventure. But whom to meet? If you're a greedy person, you only can meet a greedy person or a greedy alien. I don't want to do that. I rather go for values and volunteerism and meet an alien who is in alignment with that, whom I can ask, can you teach me? And the alien says, yes, of course, because I know more, I will teach you. What do you want to learn?
Yeah, that's
And
true.
this is, you can't buy love. All the real things, you can't buy them. You can buy sex, but you can't buy love.
Yeah, but that's not love. That's an expression
Yes,
of something. So yeah.
but you can't buy it. You only can be a loving person, and by that create the resonance of meeting a loving person.
Yeah.
It's the only possibility.
It's yeah. Harvard, I know you've read it. You know, Harvard did that 75-year study on, you know, how we become happy, you know, what is the secret sauce? And at no point in any of those things who had life satisfaction did they say, "Oh, I had a big bank account." No, it was
No,
about, you know, connection and family and you know, passion and purpose and the things that, you know, are really meaningful. I think people forget what is meaningful because we have so many things bombarding us. You know, whether it's, I'm not on TikTok, but TikTok or Facebook or Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days. Um, and it's this necessary evil because obviously technology is giving us this opportunity to share today, right? Um, and I never would have met you probably otherwise, you know, so there's gratitude in technology, but we've become so reliant on it and we've, you know, I always marvel when I hear Christians uh and Catholics. I grew up Catholic, but there's, you know, these 10 commandments and, you know, one of the commandments is thou shalt not worship false gods, right? And, you know, people try to be so zealous about their beliefs. And I think to myself, gosh, we are all breaking commandments on a daily basis. And that false God one, we all worship to some degree money. We all are starting to, not all, I mean, some people do not. So I don't want to put everybody in that box. But a vast majority of the 8 billion people or 8.5 billion people on this planet put their technology and their money and their jobs and their everything as the number one thing, and God or their belief structure or their family or their love or their mental health or their service to community, those aren't even in the top two oftentimes.
yes,
They start maybe at 3 or 4 or 5.
hmm.
um
Below 10.
but exactly.
Below 10, be realistic. But this is what we call sleeping masses. And the sleeping masses can be awakened by hearing a trumpet and fall like the walls of Jericho did fall if the right frequency is hit. But if that is not happening, they will worship the dishwasher more than connection. Yeah,
So sad.
that's true.
It is true, but it's sad. It's funny in a not funny way. Yes. No.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, I have international volunteers here in the sanctuary. I only take one at a time or a couple. And I offer them a very simple Greek house. No coffee machine. You have to cook the coffee in your coffee pot on the stove, just as we did in old times. No dishwasher. no microwave, nothing. They have to cook by themselves. They have to go into the garden, harvest, and cook. They have to take the fresh herbs because there's no freezer. They have, how is it called? Called the thing that makes the things we eat cool, the
Oh,
refrigerator. They have
refrigerator.
the refrigerator, but they have no freezer. So the freezed pizza is no option. And each day they only can meet olive trees and animals and me and maybe a Greek person 2 kilometers away. We are living in total solitude 500 meters away from the next village, which has 30 inhabitants. 30.
Wow.
So they get a cultural shock here. First, they face all their anxieties, then they get totally devastated, and then they come up crawling to me and ask me, why are you happy? And I just have to tell them because I don't have problems. I have daily challenges, but I don't have any problem. I have nothing on my consciousness which is devastating me. Yes, I have connections and I have pity for here and there and compassion here and there. And I don't feel good when I hear that my sister is bad. But on the whole, I don't have any problem and I'm very happy. And the longer they stay here, they see that this extremely simple life with a daily routine and a very slow pace is beginning to make them happy. Because they're forgetting about the material things and they forget about the problems of having this tablet or having that phone or this fancy pullover. It's not important here. It gets dirty anyway. You have to wash it.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me just say I would love to come be in your little with nothing. I noticed as we all change. When I was 18, I wanted the hot boyfriend with the Porsche and, okay. And then when I was later in my 20s, I'm not going to keep going on how old I am, but as I've aged, it has gotten, I really have gotten to this place and space where I just want it to be simple. I live here in LA right now. I do not have a car. That blows people's minds. I don't want a car. I don't take public transportation. I walk everywhere. If I can't walk, I don't go. Sometimes, if I need to do something, I'll borrow a car, which there's rideshare things here. But I'm thinking about the next phase of my life and what that looks like. And the more and more I think about it, the more I'm just like, I just want it to be simple. I don't need all this stuff. And I feel like, I've spent more time out of the United States in my adulthood than I have spent in the United States. I've been back here a little over a year, and I just find that it's an energy in this culture to get more stuff. Amazon delivers, Temu delivers. You can get anything you want like this. And, you're just like, oh, I need that. I read an article even the other day that says more and more Americans are not able to afford new cars. And I remember thinking to myself, I did go through a phase of looking like, do I need a car? And I was looking at cars and I was thinking to myself, well, first of all, why do you have to have a $60,000 car or a $70,000 car? I mean, is it that you can't afford a luxury car, because you can get used cars. The point is you can taper your expectations to fit within the realm. But we still have this ideology in this country of keep up with the Joneses. Make sure you have what the next person has. There's this jealousy, this admiration for people and things. What do you do? What do you have? And in LA, that's actually one of the very first questions people ask you. Not how are you, and genuinely want to know the answer, but what do you do? And I just tell people nowadays, I'm in service. I'm in the service industry. They can interpret that however they want. It could mean I'm a waitress. It could mean I'm a I don't know, a garbage man. It doesn't matter, because that is what we all are here to do, to serve. And everything that we do is service. So if we humbled ourselves a little bit and we realized that whatever our role is in this world was about giving back, I mean, that might be a first step, like just changing our perspective a little bit.
Yeah, if everybody would do at least a bit of service to the community, to the neighbor, to the children, to the animals, to the plants, it would mean something. But as long as everybody is going for separation and not connection, as long as everybody is going for the ego and not for the we, as long as everybody's going for materialism and not the eternal values, we face a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, this comparison, I compare me to this and that man and this woman and that woman. That's the first step of violence. Think of Marshall Rosenberg. That's what he taught.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about whether you match, whether you're good or bad, enough or not enough. First step of violence. Then judge the others. Second step of violence. Think about what other people think of you. Third step of violence.
People
And then we are already into good and bad and punishment and necessity of punishment and so on.
I love Marshall Rosenberg's work, and I don't think people often think of those things as violence. We always think of it as,
Yeah,
anti-war.
he defined. He clearly defined it. It's a very nice video still on YouTube called The Wolf Academy, where he teaches what you have to do to be a real good wolf.
The wolf.
A real violent, nasty person.
Well, I think, going back to what you said, I think simplicity, living and going back to the basics. One, I think, volunteering, but also because rent is the service is the rent you pay for life. So going back to volunteering, but having those moments and times and spaces where we do have technology breaks, where we take ourselves out of, whether it's you put your phone down for a day, or in your case, your volunteers come and they have this wonderful experience where they have to go back and live in these kind of basic environment, in this basic environment where they can just really appreciate the things that they have. It's like when you go on a sugar no sugar, right? And then you go and have sugar, whatever, a couple days later, a week later, and you're like, ooh, no,
What's that?
what's that? Yeah. If we continue to detox ourselves, those things won't be as appealing to us. So taking those moments and having those moments. So I think simplicity. And also, yeah, I love the idea of the nonviolence. And I think also with regard to nonviolence, the things that we do and say to ourselves.
Judging or not judging.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no such thing as being non-violent and being violent and being in connection. This
Mm.
is not possible.
Can you
You
explain that?
can be violent and separated, or you can be connected and non-violent. But it can't be mixed. And as long as you have violent tendencies, and if it's only manipulation by praising somebody,
Mm.
worshipping somebody, you're on the violent side, and any idea of connection is only an illusion. It's a fantasy.
Yeah. Boy, we have a lot of work to do.
Those German honesty. It's a bit brutal. We all know it.
No, but we have to hear these things. I think as societies, we're so worried about what we say and how we say it. And oh my God, especially here in the United States, people are canceling people because they're saying words. Well, let's be honest. Words only hold the power that you give them. Let's start there. But also, even if I say a word that you don't like, that doesn't mean that's me, because you need to follow the thread. Do the words follow my actions, thoughts, and deeds? So maybe I don't say what you think you need to hear, but that doesn't mean, follow the thread a little bit further. And I think, again, it goes exactly to what you said about Marshall Rosenberg, that judgment. We're all just ready to just create conflict with each other over any little thing, because people are so unhappy and so disconnected, not just from the world, but from themselves.
And nature.
And nature. Oh gosh, yeah. And
And
nature.
the first step is reconnect to yourself. And if you can't do that, reconnect to nature, reconnect to animals. Spend time with yourself without anything and anybody. Don't take a book to read, take an empty book to write in. And get to know yourself. As is written on the temple of Delhi. Not Delhi, Delphi. On the Delphi temple. Who are you? Question you can ask lifelong. Who am I really?
I could not say anything better or more than that, so I'm not even going to try. It's a beautiful way to end this segment. Who am I? Who am I really? Yeah, that's the great Buddhist question, right? I am nothing, yet I
Yeah.
am everything. I so
And I always have been there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, I would love for you, as in these last couple minutes, before I, you know, uh, do my little closing, tell us about your sanctuary. If people want to volunteer or donate, because you do, you are a retired vet, but you do some amazing work with animals, and animals are my everything. I would, if I had it was a different place and space in the world, I'd probably have my own sanctuary, because they are just, yeah. Anyway,
Amazing.
they are amazing. They are amazing. They are amazing, amazing, amazing. The love of my life. was not a human. It was a little, I'm not even going to talk about it
Little
because
doggy.
we're gonna stop right there. Anyway, tell us about your sanctuary before I start crying.
The sanctuary. The sanctuary is called the Dr. Dolittle Sanctuary and has a few rules only. One is meet on eyesight and heart base, humans as well as animals. Then we take only in who comes on his or her own four paws to the sanctuary and asks for help, and who is welcomed by the other animals here, so that we don't have any territorial conflicts, because I want to leave them all free. We have no cages. We don't have any fence. You know, I have 6 dogs here. In the night, for their personal relaxation, I put them in a kennel. But on daytime, all the 6 dogs are around the house. They don't run away. Never ever. At 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock, they're waiting for the volunteer who walks them without a leash for 1 hour. All 6, all the pack. And sometimes they go to the village and pick up the village dogs and they come on the walk. And then they drop them in the village again and our dogs come home and have some food. So the Dr. Dolittle Sanctuary is about very simple life, meeting animals on eyesight, heart base, and talk with them, live with them, get to know them, and realize that any animal is traumatized, just like any child. Whether it comes from the street or it comes out from some awful education, it's traumatized. And here they have the space to heal and remember who they have been before, and then show their personality again and really be authentic. And this is what everyone says when he comes here. Oh my God, I'm meeting 21 animals and each is so different and so intelligent and emotionally so intelligent. And that's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I'm myself living with 7 male cats in the house. No female cat associates herself to me. Only the males come. So I'm living with 7 boys.
Oh my.
And they are all so amazing. My chief cat is a cat that is nearly blind and has had very bad surgery. You would think he's impeded, but still he is the one who really takes on the responsibility and is a very just person. So he is chief of all 6, all 7. Even if he has 2 kilograms less than all the others.
Wow.
And that's amazing. And when you see him, it's a character, it's second to none. I never met a cat like that. And the new one who came in now, he's still testing on how is it to live with a human? How should I behave here? Can I bite the human and is it okay? Or better not? So he's testing a lot. At the moment he's sleeping in the kitchen. He's still robbing every bit of food he can find. He's still not trusting me that there will be food every morning and every evening, enough to eat for everybody. Will take probably 2 more weeks for him to realize that.
And
But
how can people donate to you if they want to support what you're doing? And I will also put this in the the text underneath so that people can know.
I will give you the link to my fundraiser where we have the description of the sanctuary and people just can donate monthly or one time euros or dollars or credit card or bank account.
Okay. And what if somebody
Just
wanted to come and volunteer there? Is that an option?
Yes, write to me. I give you the email address. People can write to me, they can apply. And the minimum volunteering time is 6 weeks, because till you know each animal, until you're comfortable with all this daily routine, 2 weeks are gone. And then you begin to be useful for everybody else, and you really can relax. And usually people say 6 weeks.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. Okay.
At the moment, I have a girl here, a German one, 19 years old. And she's facing her last 4 weeks. She has been here for 2 months already. And she's devastated. She doesn't want to go.
Oh, it's unfortunate. But you're also bringing
She
up,
can come back.
I was just going to say, but she can come back, and these are the kinds of kids that are going to take on these big projects and lead us into the future. So you've got your next generation to support the organization.
Here she decided that she's going to be a vet nurse.
Oh, very sweet. Very sweet. Well, Greece is on my list. It's always been on my list. So, we'll have to talk off the side, and maybe I can come visit at some point and hang out with the animals for a couple of weeks. That would be amazing. Oh my gosh. But thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate it. It was very enlightening. Love the German honesty. That's what we're all about here on 411 T Street. We tell it like it is, because someone has to, for heaven's sakes. We can't all just walk around going, "It's all okay, I swear."
No, it's not.
It's not. So,
let us close with the words that there might be a catastrophe coming. But after that catastrophe, there's a dawn.
Yeah.
And we don't focus the catastrophe. We focus the dawn.
Yes.
And all the good that's coming with it.
Absolutely. Yes. That goes back to that simple phrase. There's, watch for the silver lining. Every storm comes with a silver lining, right? Well, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for tuning into 411 T Street, where we spill the tea on the stories that matter the most. Transformation isn't a single moment. It's the clarity and insight that drives meaningful change and connects us all. If today's episode struck a chord, hit subscribe and share. Let's keep these conversations flowing and inspire real movements. 411 T Street. Get the info, spill the truth, spark the change.